Hi everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we're actually talking about cryptocurrency. And I've got to say, before I start on that, I feel like this is the first time I've really sat down and done a video or podcast where I am not actually talking to somebody, obviously about the Ukraine situation, even though this is about the Ukraine situation, and it's a huge thing, I think, that's going to have impacts on the market, quite frankly, globally, because we are talking about cryptocurrency and cryptocurrency regulation, which is coming to the United States thanks to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Now, here's what's going on. I am taking this pretty much all from Cyberscoop, who I think had a really good write-up, very concise on this to make it easier for you to digest, and myself as well, obviously. Here's what's going on. President Biden just signed an executive order on Wednesday on basically quote-unquote responsible innovation for digital assets. Now, a fact sheet released today, specifically this morning by the White House, called it, and I quote, the first ever whole-of-government approach to addressing the risks and harnessing the potential benefits of digital assets and their underlying technology. Now, the signed order lists 7 areas for concern, including mitigating quote-unquote illicit finance and the related national security risks. Now, the order also called out the lack of adequate cybersecurity protections in the industry, leaving sensitive financial information at risk and already leading to billions in losses for consumers. As I've mentioned before, cryptocurrency is an unregulated, essentially financial market. And so if you get stolen, there's no FDIC insurance. If your cryptocurrency gets stolen, there's no FDIC insurance. You are simply on your own. They are looking to regulate this, meaning the Biden administration and the US government, and therefore we may see something like this. Now, it also states, and this is directly from the order, and I quote, the United States should ensure that safeguards are in place and promote the responsible development of digital assets to protect consumers, investors, and businesses, maintain privacy, and shield against arbitrary or unlawful surveillance, which can contribute to human rights abuses. The executive order also directs agencies, and I quote, to work with our allies and partners to ensure international frameworks, capabilities, and partnerships are aligned and responsive to risks. Now, federal law enforcement agencies and financial regulators have been expanding their oversight of cryptocurrencies during the Biden administration. The Department of Justice announced earlier this year that it was essentially beefing up its efforts to combat criminal use of crypto, especially in relation to ransomware attacks. That's obviously the number one way that ransomware gangs want cryptocurrency, typically through like Monero or Bitcoin or those kinds of things. Now we are looking at that, and we just saw that recent case of those people that attempted to launder something like $3 or $4 billion of stolen crypto, and they were able to track it back, meaning law enforcement. So that's obviously a huge thing. Now, this week, the Treasury Department's Financial Crime Enforcement Network, known as FinCEN, issued guidance on how Russian entities might use digital assets to evade U.S. sanctions against Moscow for the invasion of Ukraine. And that, I think, is the real impetus to move forward as fast as possible on this executive order to start regulating this, because we are seeing a lot of oligarchs, some of which are getting their ships seized by NATO allies or allies to NATO, and some that are basically moving as fast as possible, full steam ahead, to places like the Maldives where there is no extradition treaty. And so there you go. Now, an administration official on a call with reporters yesterday on Tuesday said, and I quote, this was launched as part of the U.S. counter-ransomware strategy that has been underway for several months, and the administration will continue to aggressively combat the misuse of cryptocurrency, including the use of it to evade U.S. sanctions. Now, the White House will also, through this executive order, examine equitable and safe access to financial services, support the, quote, responsible development and use, end quote, of digital asset technology, and explore whether the United States should have a central bank digital currency. This is something that they've talked about, not a cryptocurrency, but a digital dollar, and that is something I think that is coming. And to essentially quote the chief policy officer at Coinbase, one of the largest cryptocurrency essential repositories, trading platforms, online bank, if you will, Coinbase is huge. This is what he had to say. We applaud the White House for recognizing this as a defining moment for U.S. innovation on the world stage. This is a hopeful moment. And I think what they're talking about here, or what he's talking about, this would be Faryar Shirzad, what he's essentially saying is, as soon as cryptocurrency goes mainstream, it has to be regulated. Meaning, if grandma in Idaho is going to be looking at this, not really fully understanding the risks of doing this, which is why I've done videos on just the disastrous situation that Norton LifeLock created with both Norton and their other product, Avast Antivirus, by adding crypto miners into this, because people don't really understand cryptocurrency unless you're really ensconced in it. This is actually going to start creating that regulation, not to mention the fact we're going to start seeing, I think, better tracking of these currencies. A lot of basically gangs, drug lords, terrorists, you name it, essentially started moving to cryptocurrency because it was much harder to track. That is starting to change, and we are starting to see this. And as we are looking at Russia, who has spent a good chunk of time essentially investing their economy into alternative assets, hardening it against, let's say, Western sanctions. And yes, Western sanctions are definitely hitting it. We've tanked the ruble. Their economy is in shambles. They've been cut off effectively from the internet. We are expecting them to fully cut themselves off. This will be another nail in the coffin, because if those oligarchs or part of the Russian economy says, well, we'll just stick everything in, Bitcoin, name your cryptocurrency. Bitcoin's obviously the biggest one. If we stick it all in Bitcoin, then we are going to be immune from sanctions, where, quite frankly, no. What we are seeing is we'll be able to track that, trace that, and if we start to see billions of dollars move, in unusual or suspicious patterns, we can start tracking it back to the oligarchs, the Russian corporations, the Russian government, Vladimir Putin himself, whoever is doing this. And I think that is going to help put the squeeze on Russia, as they are obviously illegally evading Ukraine and all those kinds of things. So there you go. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of cryptocurrency people out there that don't want regulation, that, prefer their entire full-blown centralized deregulated model, all those kinds of things. I get that. I understand that. I understand the need for that in some situations. But if cryptocurrency is the next generation of currency, regulation has to inevitably follow, because the whole world is expecting the backing and good faith of whatever government they fall under. So I think this is going to be interesting to see. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but thanks to the Russian invasion, we are seeing an acceleration of regulation on cryptocurrency, and that is bringing cryptocurrency mainstream. So I think in the long run, this is probably a good move. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP, and please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please stay private. Thanks, everyone.